Ice is cold, fire is hot, and refs are bad. Missed calls, wrong calls, and sometimes season-ending mistakes. Where there is a sports game, there are fans complaining about the officials. But this year more than ever before, not only fans but also NFL executives, coaches, and players themselves agreed that officiating was at an all-time low. A couple of weeks ago, Kalyn Kahler of The Athletic exposed this problem in an article that I linked down below. Kahler's report, which included interviews from people who worked in and with the NFL's officiating department, exposed some critical issues within the system. For the most part, I've always thought this problem comes from a lack of investment. The NFL doesn't treat officials like full-time employees, and both officials and executives make way more money when they get hired by Fox, NBC, or some other network. And while I still think this is a crucial part of the problem, Kahler's article exposes that there's a lot under the surface that seems to be more crucial. But before we get into that, we have to talk about officiating itself, and specifically Art McNally. The only in-game official to enter the Hall of Fame, McNally, who unfortunately passed away in 2023, is known as the father of modern officiating. When he led the NFL's officiating department, he created training regimens and standardized everything from positioning to how officials process plays. He did this by grading officials on how effective and correct they are, and also by using all 22 film to correct officials and show them their mistakes. Dean Blandino, who would later succeed McNally as the head of the NFL's officiating department, said, "That was kind of cutting edge. People weren't doing it. Art came in and understood that this was something that was needed, and laid that foundation. And that foundation is still what we stand on today in the officiating world. Every league in every sport at every level has an evaluation system, and that all goes back to Art." McNally was known for his uber-simplistic approach to officiating. All he wanted to do was make the right call. That's it. His entire system was about this purpose. Now, you might be asking yourself, wouldn't anyone in Art's position focus on making the right call? How is this any special when it's exactly what officiating is about? With that in mind, let's talk about the most recent man to hold McNally's job, Walt Anderson. I don't think Anderson went into his position with bad intentions, but I do believe he represented a stark departure from McNally's uber-simplistic approach of making the right call. He did this both by changing the way that officials regulate the game and just by overall being a terrible leader. For 3 decades, meaning from back when McNally was in charge, NFL officials would get reports by the Wednesday after their game. That means officials can work a game, receive their feedback, and have half a week to integrate that feedback before their next game. Now, remember how officials aren't full-time employees? Well, this system accounted for that and gave them plenty of time to work on being an NFL official between family life, work, and all the other things that need to get done. These reports were done by trainers and by graders, who split the responsibilities of these reports within their department and understood the specific role they were grading. Here's what an official team looks like. Each official has a different specific role they perform. This allows them to make their job an exact science. In the NFL, most trainers, graders, and officials themselves have only performed a handful of these jobs. This specialization prevents confusion and allows for an exact change of command whenever a play might be confusing. Walt Anderson started individually reviewing every official's game footage. According to Scott Green, who officiated in the NFL for 22 years, under Anderson, his teams would not get their reports back until the Saturday or Friday before the game. One of the NFL officials who Kahler interviewed said they once received their feedback at 1:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning. A different official said that he'd get one report from his trainer on a Tuesday and receive a conflicting report from Anderson later in the week. Not only does this mean he has little time to make the correct changes, but it also means he has to choose between the advice of a specialist who's supposed to train him and his boss. Officials reported that Anderson was abrasive and sarcastic in his comments, making the work environment extra stressful. One official even said he wouldn't share his feedback with his team because it would ruin team morale. But perhaps Anderson was just a tough boss. McNally's whole philosophy was about providing the most consistent and most correct officiating possible. So if Anderson's system worked, maybe officials just need to toughen up. Unfortunately, it gets even worse. Anderson didn't care about making the right call, or to be fair, it wasn't his biggest priority. Walt Anderson created his own system for officials movement called Move with Purpose. The idea was simple. When people move, we lose quality in our eyesight. So if officials stayed still throughout the play, they should have better eyesight. The only issue was, the game of football is filled with movement, and static officials made the game dangerous by increasing collisions between players and officials, and it made it harder for referees to see the ball, since they weren't allowed to move. Imagine having to call a first down, when you can't move around the pair of 300-pound linemen who are blocking the ball carrier. Officials claim that they made uncharacteristic mistakes because of this system, and Anderson, being an obsessive micromanager, made things even worse. One official, who was top 3 for correct calls at his position, kept getting downgraded due to moving to get a better look at the play. He asked his grader, "Does making the correct call matter?" and his grader responded, "Well, apparently not anymore." Officials do not appreciate Anderson's leadership. They used to get between 4 and 5 downgrades on their weekly report. Former line judge Tom Simonette said that nowadays that number has quadrupled. Under Anderson, for the second time in NFL history, we've seen a double-digit number of referees leave the NFL in back-to-back years. Out of the 7 members of an NFL officiating crew, compared to the old standard of half of them being experienced, this upcoming season, there will only be 1 or 2 experienced judges in every official crew. It's obvious that Art McNally's vision of making the correct call has been either abused or neglected under Walt Anderson. However, things are about to change. Anderson stepped down this year when his son joined the organization. His replacement is Ramon George. It's impossible to know if George will be a legitimate improvement, but one change that has already been announced makes me very hopeful. The Move with Purpose mechanics will be abolished. George said they are going to let guys run. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on Studio 29 Football.